Some airplanes are built simply to move people from point A to point B. And then there are those that become legends, symbols of an entire era and design icons recognizable at a single glance even to those who have never flown. The Boeing 747 is precisely that. Its silhouette changed the skies in the latter half of the 20th century as radically as steamships once changed the oceans. But this aircraft, this sky leviathan, could have looked entirely different if not for one pivotal decision that gave it its signature feature, that famous hump. To understand where this hump came from, you have to mentally time travel back to the 1960s. The world was rapidly shrinking. Transatlantic flights were transforming from a luxury for the elite into a mass-market mode of travel. Aviation giants were locked in a race to build supersonic airliners, promising a future where flight time would be measured in hours. But behind this glamorous facade lay a much more pragmatic, yet equally critical battle: the fight for cargo. This is where, at the intersection of ambition and economic necessity, the 747 was born. Boeing's initial plan was a clever multi-step strategy. They anticipated that the future belonged to supersonic passenger travel and that their new giant would quickly transition from passenger liners to cargo holds. And this is where engineers faced a classic conundrum: how to design a fuselage that would be equally effective for people and for standard cargo containers, and, crucially, would allow for rapid loading and unloading straight from the nose. The solution turned out to be surprisingly elegant. What if we raised the cockpit? What if we freed up the entire nose section of the plane for a massive upward swinging door through which cargo could be rolled directly on and off, no complex maneuvers needed? And that's how the famous hump was born. The space behind the crew's cockpit was far too valuable to leave unused. Why not put passengers up there, the aeronautical engineers reasonably asked? Thus, a utilitarian necessity, raising the cockpit for a cargo door, unexpectedly gifted the world not just extra space, but an entire legend: the upper deck. This wasn't a designer's whim or a marketing gimmick. This was pure engineering genius, born from the rigid demands of business and logistics. The hump didn't just remain an architectural quirk. It became a symbol of a new class of comfort, privacy, and prestige. It transformed the cabin from a simple tube for moving people into a multi-level space with its own hierarchy and atmosphere. The late 1960s marked a pivotal moment for the global aviation industry. Passenger traffic was growing at a pace that the then-dominant Boeing 707 could no longer handle. Airlines faced the necessity of moving more people per flight without increasing the number of departures, thereby avoiding overloading airports. A qualitative leap was required, a transition from narrow-body to wide-body aircraft. This very challenge led to the birth of the Boeing 747 project. In March 1966, Boeing's board of directors made the historic decision to begin work on a radically new airliner. Just on April 13th, the company's 50th anniversary, a contract was signed with Pan American for the delivery of 25 aircraft at a price of $20 million each. This was an unprecedented agreement that would define the future of air transport for decades to come. The initial concept envisioned a fully double-decked aircraft. However, engineers quickly encountered fundamental problems. A full second deck created insurmountable difficulties for emergency passenger evacuation. Existing safety regulations required that all passengers could evacuate the aircraft within 90 seconds. The solution proved to be unexpected and brilliantly simple. The upper deck was compressed into a distinctive hump shifted toward the nose of the fuselage. This space housed the cockpit and, at Pan Am's insistence, an additional lounge for first-class passengers.
Simultaneously, another strategic goal was being addressed:
versatility. Boeing designed the airliner from the outset for easy conversion from a passenger to a cargo configuration. The elevated cockpit freed up the nose section, where an upward-swinging cargo door could be installed. This engineering insight predetermined the model's longevity. Even with the arrival of more modern airliners, the Boeing 747 remained in high demand precisely as a cargo plane. Development proceeded at an incredible speed. The project budget exceeded $1 billion, an astronomical sum for the 1960s. The first prototypes were built and took flight in 1969, and on December 30 of that same year, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration issued the Airworthiness Certificate. Such a rapid realization of such a complex project was made possible by concentrating the best engineering lines and unprecedented investment. The unique silhouette with its characteristic hump became not just the model's signature, but a symbol of a new era in aviation, the age of mass long-haul travel. The design solutions embedded in the Boeing 747 allowed for the realization of the most ambitious engineering ideas of its time and shaped the course of civil aviation for decades. It's noteworthy that the staircase leading upstairs is a permanent structural element, not a temporary fixture. It's built into the airframe and is present even in pure cargo variants, where there isn't a single passenger seat upstairs. This underscores its primary functionality. It provides the crew with constant and convenient access to the cockpit, regardless of the cabin configuration. Therefore, the Boeing 747's hump is a masterfully executed engineering puzzle, where every piece, from the pilot's position to the shape of the nose cone, was calibrated to achieve the versatility, safety, and ultimately the commercial success that would define long-haul aviation for decades. From an aerodynamic perspective, such a large protrusion on the fuselage creates significant additional drag. To mitigate this effect, engineers had to perform meticulous work on other components of the airframe. A key element was the swept wing with a 37.5-degree angle. This wing, being cantilevered and all-metal, not only effectively reduced wave drag at cruise speeds, but also generated powerful lift. This is what allowed the heavily loaded Giant to take off from relatively short runways while maintaining maneuverability in flight. The shape of the hump itself was carefully optimized for smooth airflow, integrating it into the overall aerodynamic scheme rather than leaving it as a crude superstructure. However, aerodynamic perfection alone was not enough. To get such a behemoth off the ground and into the sky required a genuine revolution in propulsion. The Pratt & Whitney JT9D engines, the world's first high-bypass turbofan engines, with a record-breaking bypass ratio for their time, were specifically developed for the 747. These engines provided not only the necessary thrust, but also acceptable fuel economy, making transcontinental flights with a full payload commercially viable. An added benefit was a significant reduction in noise levels compared to previous generations of engines. Controlling an aircraft of such size and mass required unprecedented measures for reliability and handling. The aircraft was equipped with 4 fully independent hydraulic systems. This redundancy was not a luxury, but a stark necessity. Even the failure of several systems could not deprive the pilots of the ability to control the Giant. To improve takeoff and landing characteristics, the wing was fitted with complex high-lift devices, including slotted flaps. These elements, when extended, increased the wing's area and curvature, radically improving lift at low speeds. Without this system, using the 747 at standard international airports would have been impossible. It would have simply required impractically long runways. Thus, every element of the Boeing 747's design, from the contour of the hump to the shape of the wing and the power of the engines, was part of a single, complex engineering puzzle. The hump was the very detail that triggered a chain reaction of intricate calculations and innovations. In the final analysis, it was this comprehensive approach where aerodynamics, structural integrity, and economic efficiency were balanced that allowed the 747 not merely to fly, but to become a benchmark for decades to come, and to usher in a new era of mass long-haul air travel. Its unique silhouette is a testament,
frozen in metal to the triumph of engineering intellect over the formidable technical challenges it faced.
The flexibility of this base design allowed Boeing to respond nimbly to shifting market demands, spawning an entire family of variants. The 747-200 model received more powerful engines and an increased range, expanding its route network. For ultra-long-haul routes where full passenger capacity wasn't critical, the shortened 747 SP Special Performance was created to connect continents with non-stop flights. The pinnacle of the Classic Series development was the 747-400, which integrated modern avionics, new, more fuel-efficient engines, and added fuel tanks, elevating its economy and range to a new level. In parallel, purely cargo versions like the 747-400F were developed, alongside programs to convert older passenger jets into freighters, 747-400SF. This demonstrated the platform's enduring relevance at a time when many of its contemporaries were already being retired. The jumbo jet's strategic importance to airlines was defined by its unique combination of characteristics for its era. Its ability to carry up to 400 passengers and cross oceans without refueling made it the ideal tool for dominating growing transoceanic routes. It allowed carriers to move more people per flight, lowering the cost per passenger mile and making mass international travel more accessible. But beyond pure economics, the 747 carried a powerful brand image. It became a flagship, a flying symbol of an airline's prestige and technological prowess. For passengers, flying on it was an event. For pilots, it was a badge of professional honor. And while the era of large four-engine passenger jets is winding down, the commercial story of the Boeing 747 is far from over. The continued demand for its cargo variants, particularly in the oversized freight sector it was originally geared towards, vividly confirms the foresight of its creators. The versatility born half a century ago in the form of a unique hump continues to pay dividends, ensuring the model's undiminished significance within the global logistics system.
The Boeing 747 revolutionized the very approach to mass transportation, becoming the world's first mass-produced wide-body airliner. 2 aisles between seats instead of 1 created a sense of spaciousness and comfort previously unavailable in the era of narrow-body aircraft. This set a new industry standard for major trunk routes. Meanwhile, the hump did not remain a static element. Initially serving as a retreat for crew rest on long-haul flights, it quickly transformed into the most prestigious zone on board. Airlines realized that this exclusive space in the nose of the plane could be sold for a much higher price. Thus, the upper deck became a club, a bar, or a lounge for first-class passengers, turning into a powerful tool for branding and a demonstration of the carrier's status. The influence of the Boeing 747 on civil aviation is difficult to overstate. Its success proved the viability and economic rationale of the concept of mass transportation over ultra-long distances. The design solutions, the refinement of technologies for manufacturing wide-body airframes and powerful engines, all of this laid the foundation for subsequent generations of long-haul airliners. Many principles of versatility and the ability to adapt to different needs, from passenger flights to cargo transport, became a benchmark for the entire industry. The legendary hump is not merely a design quirk, but the embodiment of an entire era when aviation made a giant leap from an elite pursuit to an accessible and reliable form of transportation that connected continents.
The Boeing 747 fundamentally redefined the very concept of air travel, transforming it from an elite privilege into an accessible mode of transportation for the masses. Its introduction in 1970 on Pan Am's routes coincided with the dawn of the mass tourism era. Crossing an ocean was no longer reserved for business magnates and movie stars, but became possible for teachers, students, and families. This aircraft brought globalization into everyday life. shrinking the psychological distances between continents. People began planning vacations on the other side of the world, forming international marriages and studying abroad. The Boeing 747 became the physical embodiment of a bold new idea that the world belonged to everyone. Its unique humpbacked silhouette instantly permeated the public consciousness. Cinema used it as a universal symbol of technological optimism, from shots of the airliner taking off in disaster films to elegant scenes in luxurious cabin interiors in Hollywood dramas. Advertising agencies featured it on billboards as an icon of status and reliability. Even children who didn't know aircraft models could instantly recognize the humped profile in toys and cartoons. This plane became part of the visual code of modernity. Historic moments cemented its legendary status. In 1991, an El Al Boeing 747 set a world record by carrying 1,135 passengers during Operation Solomon, the evacuation of Ethiopian Jews. This flight transformed the aircraft from a means of transport into a tool of rescue, proving that technology could serve humanitarian purposes. The plane acquired another symbolic meaning in its role as Air Force One, the flying residence of the U.S. president. Its powerful silhouette on the runway broadcast a message of American leadership and technological supremacy, even during the most challenging periods of the Cold War. Airlines quickly realized that the 747 was not merely transport, but a stage for creating unique experiences. Within its two-story space, concepts unthinkable for other airliners came to life. The upper deck featured lounge areas with leather armchairs. The main cabin housed actual bars where passengers could socialize mid-flight. Some carriers experimented with musical instruments. A piano in the cabin became a focal point, creating the atmosphere of a flying club. These innovations did more than enhance comfort. They turned long-haul flights into memorable events, blurring the line between utilitarian travel and luxurious leisure. Although economic efficiency eventually ended the mass operation of 747s, their cultural capital only grew. For pilots, this aircraft remained the pinnacle of professional mastery. Flying the Queen of the Skies was considered the ultimate challenge. Passengers grew nostalgic for an era when flight felt like an adventure, not merely a journey in a sealed tube. Today, as air travel has become routine, the 747 reminds us of a time when humanity was just learning to erase borders and did so with incredible style and dignity. Its legacy is not merely one of engineering solutions, but a fundamental shift in how people perceive the world and their place within it.